Hello and welcome back to First Issues. Yes, I know I've been gone for a bit, but what is dead may never die, but rise again harder and stronger. I'm the Archivist and I've got a lot of backlog first issues to get through, so let's get cracking with The Runaways 2017 number 1, written by Rainbow Rowell, art by Chris Anka, and colors by Matthew Wilson. So before I get into the plot of this, I'd like to point out the ye old binging on comics I did for this series, spanning its official life before it died quietly after a long death rattle, after Whedon seemed to fudge his way through the book. Check that in the description below. And yes, full disclosure, I have a fear I'll not be too nice on this, since this is a series that I've loved for a very long time. Sorry, Rainbow. Okay, so we start off with Nico Minoru in a crappy apartment trying to boil water before she burns her thumb and then gets mopey because she's alone. Why is this a bit stupid? Well, because she didn't run away from the Runaways. The book ended. Then she became a potential Sorcerer Supreme or Sorceress Supreme during Marvel Now. Then she was abducted, which I assume is the she was a missing person, but that led to Undercovers, so it's not like she was a missing person for very long. And then finally A-Force, which was just a mess, but last I knew, they were still generally all on decent terms, even if Carol was still in her Civil War II crazy pants. But interrupting emo time, Chase poofs in with a time machine with a freshly stabbed Gert. However, Nico can't heal Gert. Not because she's dead, but because Nico's been a hero for some time now, and most if not all of her healing spells have been said. Yes, the Staff of One cannot use the same spell twice. It's actually really neat, but kinda did give a longevity issue to the character. So instead, Nico summons a random doctor to try and help. But after a bit, it's revealed that the doctor is actually a podiatrist, so even the x-ray specs and blood transfusion won't help. Or does it? After this really mediocre explanation that no, this was always how it went down that night when Gert got stabbed, which I'll get into in a moment. Gert wakes up. Dun dun dun! But a cat on the windowsill watches with glowing eyes. And then we cut over to someone else who has a cat with glowing eyes, who says Chase's name. Dun dun, eh? So before I talk about this on its own, let's talk about it on a sequel level, because Nico's had a full history here, so it is a sequel. And honestly, what the hell? The scene with Gert's death couldn't have had this time travel aspect because it wasn't a mostly dead, as we saw when she willed Old Lace over to Chase. But I get it, this was solely to get the old band back together. I'm also going to assume we're going to make the evil Alex that betrayed them to the Pride actually a Skrull, so he can join back up too. No, I actually don't think that'll happen. But way to take the wind out of literally the biggest character moment for all the Runaways, including Gert, to bank on nostalgia. But I need to get over how this is probably going to screw with the timeline because Gert's alive again. However, it's easy to replace her body behind the Hollywood sign. Or hey, maybe Marvel finally decided to adhere to its own damn rules, and they'll find the 616 Gert's body still there, because you cannot change the timeline in Marvel Comics like that. It creates a new timeline, an alternate timeline. It's why Age of Apocalypse happened the way it did. I'm done fansplaining. So outside of being a bit awkward for people who've read the previous Runaways, how about on a strictly issue level? Frankly, it's a pointless read if you've never read the Runaways before. You get a page of Nico being generically emo before Chase shows up. You have a narrator going the barest bones about what is going on. Not a reason to connect with any of these characters, mind you, just what's going on. Oh, I'm sorry. The only character you could actually connect with is the podiatrist who was kidnapped while brushing her teeth to try and save someone from a stab wound, but ultimately failing because Nico is failing to improvise well. That's the second problem. You get Nico mainly just being a total screw-up, even with the narrator going like, oh, she's totally good at this. This was written for a trade, or else it wouldn't have literally been one scene that dragged on for way too long, because I'm going to assume Rainbow did her plot layout and figured that Gert waking up was going to be the shock ender of the first issue, and then tagging on the random dude with a pocket protector. Don't worry, we've all been there plot-wise. My suggestion, however, would have been look at the golden times of being a runaway, and then slide into the bad times when suddenly, poof, Chase comes in with a time machine, and you basically skip the random character to focus on what could have definitely been a tighter emotional scene, because even for new readers, at least having setup could go far. And keep the cat with the glowing eyes as the last panel, keeping a bigger mystery to what's going on, and ultimately would have made this a, okay, you got me, I'm intrigued, I'll check out the next issue. As for the art, it's passable. It's not bad, but there's most definitely a feel of standard about it. Though I will say that Nico kind of looks very un-Nico-like in this. It's like if Chris Anka was given She's Asian and just slanted the eyes a smidge and just painted a standard model yellow. What's weird about it is that most everyone, except for the podiatrist, looks like they're almost stock model characters, and even then the podiatrist comes off as a self-inserted webcomic character. It gets the job done, but could have done so much more to set itself apart from Marvel's other al dente comics. So, what's the verdict? Well, it's a standard book that couldn't ride the love I felt, even for the non-BKV Runaway books. Seriously, give everything after Whedon a read, and you'll see why his was the worst run, while everyone after was just playing it safe to not be that bad. It's got standard, if a bit bare-bones art, and just banks on being part of a trade. My verdict is, sadly, skip it. Skip it means that it's not worth the read. I mean, if you are a Runaways fan, you've probably already read it, but if you aren't, this is most definitely not the place to start. However, I will put an asterisk next to it because honestly, I'll give it a read when it's out in trade for binging on comics. Maybe it will actually have an impact when all collected so you see the story as it lays out. But that's all for today. If you agree with me that this book could have definitely been better, or if it felt like they could only imagine a cube, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and please consider supporting the Patreon, which also covers A Comic Day and ComicSins, the CinemaSins knockoff for comic fans. And as always, I'm the Comic Archivist. Stay golden, Inklings.